Hey guys, how are you doing today? I'm doing great, thanks for asking. Today I want to talk about speed mixing, but before I do, if you want to join the Discord, the link is in the description, and I have nothing else to show, so let's just get right into it. So speed mixing, what is speed mixing? It's mixing in a fast pace. There's a lot of benefits to actually doing this rather than just spending however much time you think you need on doing whatever you're doing, whether it be guitars, drums, vocals, bass, whatever it may be. And I very quickly learned the value of this when I was working on my latest Lord Weaver Singer Revelation. You can find it floating up there. I spent literal months just trying to make this as good as it can be. And while I'm happy with the result, can't help but feel like it could have been better if I didn't just spend literal months on it. A big thing with mixing, especially when you want things to be perfect, is you'll spend an ungodly amount of time on something, and because you're spending all that extra time on it, you're going to be just sucked down rabbit hole after rabbit hole trying to find one frequency after another, and then it ends up just kind of killing the sound. And realistically, if you are struggling that much with one sound, maybe you can use a different IR. If you're talking about guitars, for example, maybe trying a different bass, maybe trying, there's a plethora of things that can go into and contribute to a bad sound. And that is one of the things that I find that really benefits from speed mixing, is quickly knowing that won't work, this will work. That IR sucks, this one is great. And sometimes the IR doesn't suck, it just doesn't work for the song. And that's what speed mixing will help you achieve in your brain. When I first started and up into an embarrassingly close time frame, I would over EQ like crazy. And I still stand by all the videos I put out, I really do. However, knowing that I can get a similar result, if not better result, with less moves and more critical thinking in mind, it really changes everything. And so, for example, if I take my guitar EQ, this is all there is. I mean, these can be optimized, that can probably be one, and it's just meticulous at that point. But look at this EQ that I did. That is highly unnecessary. Like this move here at 250-ish hertz, that is absolutely understandable. That's where a lot of mud in guitar lies. But like all of these little points here and there, all of this, it's entirely unnecessary. And granted, this is on a DI, so that might be why it's so crazy, but either way, it doesn't need to be that crazy. For my actual guitar EQ on the wet sound signal, so like where the amp is coming through, I'm just cutting around some of the mud. Again, those can be optimized, but some of the harshness up here in around 3K, and that was it. Nothing else. I mean, I did throw Soothe on there, but it quite honestly didn't really need it that much. And so being able to just quickly go through a sound and make it sound great, that's incredibly valuable, because it saves you time, saves you headache, saves you worry, saves you blood, sweat, and tears. Another thing that speed mixing will really benefit you with is consistency, because of course you're not going to be consistent in getting a lot of things done, a lot of improvement over a long amount of time, because if you're spending all of your time on that one mix, I can spend, again, months on a mix, and I can eventually just say, okay, I'm done with it, I don't want to touch it anymore, that's it. Or I can practice on many mixes, or even different iterations of that same mix or that same track, and actually learn from trying to get faster and faster, and actually use critical thinking to more efficiently make moves and end up with a much better result. To be quite honest, I almost just threw in the towel for mixing when I was doing Revelation, just because it was really sucking me down that bad. And so this is just a PSA for whoever's struggling with that same exact issue. Stop. I know that every single tutorial will tell you cut around where the bass is kind of prominent, so that way it's not meshing with the bass, and to roll off some of the high end, and to 4K is bad, so get rid of 4K and get rid of any harshness and muddiness, and it ends up being like this really huge big problem, right? Well, what they don't tell you is the more you cut up here in the high end of the spectrum, you're going to have a lot more muddiness showing through, because all of these frequencies that you're cutting are going to be quieter. And so if the high end is quiet, you're hearing all the boominess, you're hearing muddiness, you're hearing all of these extra problems like in the mid-range and all of this other like sub-information, and then you end up with a signal that's practically dead. And the same is in the reverse as well. If you're cutting too much of the low end, you're going to end up having a lot more higher frequencies that sound harsh that otherwise would never sound harsh, because you're just essentially boosting the high frequencies. So finding a balance of EQ that works, it can be hard sometimes, but generally, just as a random example for guitar, I like to cut 250, 500 general areas and take away some 3K, because I tend to have a harsh 3K, but that's going to be subjective and also dependent on your gear. And if there's any additional harshness, just pull it down, and that would make it much more alive than the previous example. And I would have never learned that if it wasn't for me setting a timer and actually going through it as fast as I can. What I would suggest personally is set a timer. If you're just starting speed mixing, you can set it for like 30 minutes. Strictly focus on one instrument. Of course, you can unsolo and kind of just balance the mix as you go, but focus on one instrument. Spend no more than 30 minutes, 45 minutes if you're starting on a guitar, and then set it again, bass, set it again, drums, set it again, vocals, and whatever, so on and so forth. If you're finding that you're finishing it within that time frame or just below that time frame, set the timer lower. Go from 30 to 45 minutes to 15 to 30 minutes, and so on and so forth. Of course, it's going to be unrealistic to mix an entire drum kit in 5 minutes, so obviously there's a limit. One, that's going to help you find what plugins you actually want to use and need to use, which will also in turn help you save money from buying more plugins. 2, it's going to make you a lot more efficient. 3, you're going to gain a lot more confidence in every move that you make and know exactly why you're making that move rather than just kind of aimlessly wandering around. You get more mixes out. You don't get stuck. You're not focusing on one thing for months like me. So yeah, it's a different video this week, but I still think it's very valuable, and I think it's a very necessary thing to discuss, because let's be real, no one really talks about it. Everyone just says to mix. If you want to join the Discord, the link again is in the description, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.